What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It's time for live, full-time reaction to Celtic 1, Aberdeen 0 at Celtic Park. I'm joined tonight by Kenny and Declan to go over the game. It's a live format. You can ask your questions in the live chat box below, and we'll try and pick out some good ones as we go through. Kenny, very similar over the piece to the game we had against Aberdeen 10 days ago. What did you make of it overall?
Yeah, it was pretty dull stuff, really, wasn't it? I mean, I suppose there was a lot of relief from the fans that were now playing, without lying in the dugout. But I suppose, to be honest about it, if John Kennedy had all the answers to change the side, he would have tried to implement them before now. I didn't expect to see a great deal of change. I think they played with a bit more freedom because they probably feel psychologically relieved in the way the fans do. And I think Christie and McGregor and Turnbull were playing some nice stuff early on, playing with a lot of energy. Something that I think Kennedy probably did suggest is that Eddie starts to just use have the run of that last third, because he was drifting out wide. He was getting into all those dangerous areas where he's built his reputation for Celtic. He hadn't been doing that under Lennon, so it looked like he was maybe tactically advised to do that. And Ajer was coming forward from the back a lot more, which is a real weapon for Celtic that we've not really had this season. So maybe he's identified a couple of good spots there that have assisted us. And I think had Klimala been more clinical, he missed a sitter and he was a bit uninspiring, I would say. Had he been more clinical, we probably could have killed the game. Where I was disappointed was the second half. Good sides, when they're 1-0 up, when the game's in the balance, they come out and kill it. And maybe that's where the lack of fans doesn't help us, because we'd be roaring them on and they try and kill it. But that shouldn't be an excuse. Man City don't have any fans. They've won 20 games in a row. I'm sure they're coming out in the second half and killing games. So good teams do that, and we didn't do that. And then you get nervy, and we've got a goalkeeper that doesn't come off his line, and we've got centre halves that are nervous because of that. So fortunately, we hung out, but overall, pretty uninspired. But we've got to just be happy with a win these days.
Declan, interesting to hear John Kennedy before the game explain tactically why he was starting Klimala, in terms of identifying that you could maybe get in behind Aberdeen early on, and Klimala could stretch the game with his pace. But then, I don't know about everybody else, but I'm sure most of us missed the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game with the ever-reliable Celtic pass. And in that opening couple of minutes, Aberdeen were the team that were doing the pressing, and they had 2 great chances originating for set pieces, and Scott Bain had to make a great save.
Yeah, it was a really good save from the Ash Taylor header. Again, I think Derek McInnes would have looked at how to exploit Celtic this season. We know, I think the graphic the other night against Ross County was 43% of goals conceded in the league have been from set pieces, so it was obviously something to get at. I think, to touch on something that Kenny said there, I thought in the first half, at times in the final third, we looked to kind of penetrate the final third, but again, just not burying games. The point at the end there by Gordon Strachan, whether you like his comments or not at times, I thought he made a really good point, and that the chance at the end from Odsonne Edouard, Soros made about a 40-yard run. He's there at his left-hand side, and he goes for the harder option instead of giving him the ball. And at the end of the game, the two of them are standing laughing at each other. Now, to me, I don't want to sound Mr. Negative here, there's nothing to laugh at this season. Whether it's, a wee silly chance like that, we're in a position here where we're 18 points behind, we're 15 now. The league leaders who have run away with the league, the managers resigned this week, or sacked or whatever, and we're not burying games. So, whatever the position we're in, I still thought at times just not burying games, and it needs to be something we need to work on. Again, no, don't want to be too critical of John Kennedy, because it's been one game. He's not had a lot of time to put his stamp on the team. I know he's been in the background, but as an assistant manager, you don't have full control. So we'll see what happens in the weeks to come. But 3 points was all we really wanted today, and we got that.
That was a glorious chance for Edouard at the end. I thought in the second half we didn't really create too much, but McGregor has a great chance that he smashes wide, and then that's 2-on-1 with Edouard, and he's just got to make the right decision. And Darnody said it numerous times in commentary today, and he was right, that when he's in the box, he wants to dribble past 2 or 3 players before he thinks about finishing it, and that's what happens right at the end. Kenny, do you think we've seen a better energy or slightly better movement for the team early in the first half? Maybe after the goal, I thought we had some good link-up play down the left between McGregor, Laxalt and Edouard at times.
Yeah, I mean, Laxalt's been really poor going forward, from day one, really. But that was probably the best sort of half hour or so we had out in an offensive respect. He was playing nice little balls inside. He was getting in behind. He was using his intelligence. And the team looked a bit refreshed at that point. They've still got the talent. We've been saying this all season. The talent doesn't go away. It's just not been channeled in the right way. and Turnbull was picking the ball up in dangerous areas, and they were standing off us. I mean, you can see that we're by far, of greater quality than them. But you've got to kill games off. You've got to use your quality to play with urgency until the game's dead, and we didn't. That was the real disappointing thing. You come out in the second half and you think, right, let's just take it to them. Let's get the game done, and we didn't. We laid off them. We seemed lethargic, and there's still psychological damage there, right? We're not going to be a whirlwind team overnight just because Neil Lennon's moved on. The guys are damaged, I believe, and psychologically there's still an issue there. So nice to see us play with a bit more freedom, but yeah, I'm not. I'm a little bit fearful of some of the harder games we've got coming up because we don't look particularly well coached, and we don't look particularly well confident.
Declan, some criticism before the game that John Kennedy maybe didn't make enough changes to the starting 11. I think a lot of people, after how this season's gone, were wanting to see more than maybe a couple of changes in the starting lineup. But what differences did you notice? It looked like Scott Brown, certainly in the first half, was dropping back, and the centre halves were splitting, much more like a Brendan Rodgers set up, if you like, in possession at times in the first half. Yeah,
Brown was kind of dropping into that back three a lot deeper than we've probably seen. As you say, the two fullbacks were getting forward a lot more, kind of instead of holding the line. The energy, I thought, maybe first half an hour, 40 minutes was decent. I thought we looked a wee bit quicker in the ball. We looked to get the ball forward a lot more. It wasn't that kind of take a touch and wait and go. We were moving the ball a bit quicker. Even Ryan Christie, who I've been a big critic of this season at times, it wasn't doing his usual act and firing shots. He was getting the ball and looking up and trying to pick out the right pass. But again, the second half, it just seemed to go back to the old tried and tested, and we just faded for the second half. And it was a bit of a tough watch. But I thought first half, the energy looked a wee bit there. The players looked as if they were playing a wee bit more freedom. But again, time will tell under John Kennedy, because again, it's only one game, and I won't judge him on that as of yet.
I think in the second half, again, Kenny, very similar to that game 10 days ago. I thought Aberdeen maybe didn't create as much today as they maybe did 10 days ago. But again, the second half, you're looking for us to really come out and put the foot down. But Aberdeen did. I think the second half overall was just scrappy, wasn't it? There was a lot of fouls, a lot of throw-ins. No real rhythm to the game in the second half.
No, and I think if you're playing with a diamond, what you're relying on is your fullbacks getting forward to support you in the white, because you've no real natural width with a diamond. So you really need the fullbacks to play intelligently going forward. And I think John Joe Kenny, he's used to playing for Everton, where they're more or less, mid-table in the English Premier League, and he's probably been built into a system where his primary role is to defend. And that's fine, but his primary role for Celtic, yes, it's to defend, but it's just as important that he attacks. So I think he's a solid defender, but I think we need to get a bit more out of him over the course of 90 minutes going forward. And Laxalt seemed to regress. Johnny Hayes seemed to play him a bit better as well, and we just didn't get any width. And there was just a lack of desire, I think. It wasn't like people were shouting and bawling at each other to try and get the ball forward. It's as if we're just resigned to the fact that we've got a slender lead. We've only ever got a slender lead. Let's just try and limp through to the end of the game. And that's why we've been dropping so many points. So, yeah, I wasn't surprised at how poor, we were in the second half. But we had some pretty decent, I think, late defensive challenges. We weren't winning many first balls in there, as we never ever do. But for once, we were at least winning the second balls. And I think that's because Ajer and Welsh, are a bit of a safer pair of hands than we've had so far this season.
Yeah, I think in the second half, pretty symptomatic in most of the season, as you say. Just want to pick up on this comment for Chris Tully, lost energy with poor fitness. Hopefully Kennedy can fix that. But I thought there was a bit more organisation about the team. Declan, John Kennedy's only had, 2 days training with the team. It was pretty much the same old over the course today. But what did you make of the substitutions? I mean, Klimala came off and El Yunusi came on. It looked went back to 4-2-3-1 at that stage in the game. And then I thought it was strange that when Sorrow came on, it was for Turnbull, and then McGregor went into the 10. We've not really seen that very often.
No, we've not. It wasn't like for like we've seen a lot this season. As you say, we kind of changed the shape when Moylanousi came on. Didn't have a great impact to the games. A couple of wee driving runs at the end. But once again, I'm still perplexed to how David Turnbull can't last 90 minutes, but Scott Brown can. I thought Scott had a decent enough game today, but it's just something that David Turnbull was a lot better. But I just still don't get that David Turnbull can't do 90 minutes. But yeah, 2 subs in the game. Again, on fitness, John Kennedy's been part of the backroom staff under Neil Lennon for 30 games this season, and the fitness levels that we've all been critical of, I've been there to see. And has he been a part of that, or has he not had an effect on that? I would probably say he has been a part of that, but whether that changes in the remaining 7 games after this, we'll see. But substitutes wise, it didn't make a big impact in the game. As you say, Klimala off, Moy on, changed the shape, didn't really make a difference for me. And then Sorrow came on for Turnbull. Sorrow, we know what he can do. And as I said at the end of the game, he had that driving run, and probably if Edouard plays him in, he gets a goal. But again, symptomatic of our season, just not burning chances, as I said earlier on.
I agree. I think obviously we've discussed the Edouard chances. Matthew Wilson is asking, what's your valuation of Edouard now? Kenny, we're all resigned. We know that he's going to leave in the summer. He's only got really a year left to run. I think his contract's up in summer 2022. So we know that he's going to go. Would you make of that in terms of valuation right now after how this season's unfolded?
It's tough, isn't it? I mean, with a year to go, you're certainly going to get an undervaluation. I mean, broadly, you can sort of half their value with a year to go. We lost Gary Hooper for about £4 million. He was worth way more than that with a year to go. Other people we've lost with a year to go, and you don't get much. Olivier Nchams on a £4.5 million option. He's worth more than that, but that's because there's only a year to go. I think if you look at Edouard as a man and at his peak at Celtic, you're probably looking at near 30. We've been stung in the past. 25 million's a record for Kieran Tierney. Look at what he's worth, 70 now, I would say. How crazy they are down there. He's probably the best left back in England now. We undersold him. 30 would have been a reasonable thing for Eddie, but I'd say I'm looking at 15. I don't see us getting a great deal north of 15 because of his contract, and probably because a lot of clubs are damaged by the pandemic, and there's not going to be that many high ball transfers flying around, I don't think. But if we can get 15 from him and reinvest a third of it or something, I think that's realistically what we're going to end up doing.
Declan, another player where speculation surrounds him in terms of his future in the summer is Christopher Ajer. But again, today I thought he was really good. Obviously, we have to defend our box at times against Aberdeen, and we talked before the game about how strong they are at set pieces. Got a lot of size and height in their team, but I thought again Christopher Ajer was really good. Yeah,
I think he was thoroughly deserved of the man of the match accolade that he got, Paul. Again, stuck to the basics, defended his box pretty well at times in the first half, and I spoke about that energy. I thought he was part of that. It wasn't, the usual ball to Ajer, wait, then go back to Scott Bain or whatever. We were quick in building the attack, which we did well. So, I thought Chris Ajer did well in the game, and I thought it was just another typical performance by him. But again, we're talking about valuation. I would put Christopher Ajer in that category, about 20-25 million.
Mm-hmm. Kenny, what do you think? Ajer, he's got everything, hasn't he? Again, only 22, a lot of development in him. Do you think he can go and play at a high level?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he came here when he was 17, Ronnie Delia. He came here as a centre midfielder, so he can play with the ball at his feet, and that's why he's so dangerous when he comes out from the back, because he gets a bit of a nosebleed when he gets into the opponent's box. But up until that point, he's so hard to dispossess just because of his sort of strength, and his speed is a bit deceptive just because of his size. But he cares. I've actually, at the start of the season, I thought, is he going to care? He's not signed a new deal. AC Milan are sniffing about him. Where does that leave us? He's given his all this season. I think if you're looking at Player of the Year for us this season, which is an awful exercise to conduct given what we've gone through, you would probably give it to Ajer. He's wore his heart on his sleeve. He wins his headers all the time. He's dangerous coming out for the back. He's got a bit of a mistake in him, but he's only 22 and 25, Declan. Maybe, I mean, he probably is definitely worth that. With a year left, I don't know if we'll get that high, but there was interest in him from Italy. So if there's a couple of clubs in for him, who knows? We might get real solid money for him. But yeah, wish him well, and I think he'll definitely go on to play top 5 leagues in Europe.
I think you make a good point about his leadership qualities there for such a young player. He has showed good leadership.
He was a captain of the Norwegian team he came from at 17, so he's born with that, right? He's just born with it.
Aye, absolutely, you can see that. Neither of us were on with us during the week when we would discuss Neil Lennon leaving. Want to bring up this question: who do you think will be the next manager? Declan, there's obviously a lot of talk about director of football.
Yep.
Maybe before we choose the next head coach, but what have you made of how things have unfolded this week, and who's your pick for the next manager?
I've kind of got 2 points in it. I think if we're going to go down the elite manager route, for me it would be Eddie Howe. But if we do go for that left field option with a director of football, I wouldn't be surprised to see the setup from Manchester City coming in, and Enzo Maresca coming in as head coach with Fergal Harkin, just due to the links of the two clubs. I think that could be something that the club might look at, but if we're going down that elite manager route, it would be Eddie Howe for me. Would I be surprised to see Enzo Maresca come in as head coach? Probably not. As I say, I think that job that he is in just now at Manchester City was a job that Ronnie Dyler was initially meant to take on and didn't take. That's how he came in Celtic's radar. We now see Ronnie at New York City, so there's obviously a connection there. And if you think of the amount of players that we've had from Manchester City in previous seasons, your Boyatas, Roberts, Zarzanis, etc. So that setup, I think, could possibly be the way we'll go if we go with the left field option. But as I say, elite manager-wise, it'd be Eddie Howe. But Enzo Maresca is the one who I think possibly could be in the dugout next season.
Aye, that's interesting, that those links with Manchester City. I mean, my abiding memory, Enzo Maresca is scoring against Middlesbrough in the 2007 UEFA Cup final. I think they won 4-0. Kenny, what do you make of it? How do you expect the club to look at recruiting the next manager? Do you think we'll definitely get a director of football and then go from there?
I think we have to, in that the chief executive has never had a day in his life working for a football team. So how can you have him lead us in terms of using his contacts within the game to bring in transfers and do all the day-to-day running? He's going to need a bit of support, and he's going to need to be supplemented by someone who is experienced in a football capacity. So I think that's obvious. Who we bring in, I don't know. It's hard to judge, how effective a director of football is, because they just sit in the background. But the guy from Man City seems to have a reasonable pedigree. In terms of a manager, I think it's absolutely key that we get someone who's experienced and pushed the boat out. Had we been, let's face it, right? We're starting the next season with probably 6 or 7 senior players. We're starting next season with little money. We're starting next season with a chief executive who's come out of rugby. That is very vulnerable. That is very precarious. We cannot go with our experimental manager. You can if you're flying. We need a safe pair of hands. If we sign 12 or 14 players and the guy that does it gets it wrong, you can kiss goodbye to a couple of years of titles, because they're all then on long-term contracts. You can't get rid of them. You've got a real problem. We've got one hit here to get this right and come back quick. And if we get the right man, I think we can do it. There's not that many obvious candidates within a realistic grab for us. I think Martinez and Rafa Benitez, you'd be as well just forgetting about them. Eddie Howe is the obvious one. I think we'd almost universally be delighted with that. I'd love to think that they're going to make an approach for him. But I think whatever they do, it needs to be an experienced person, someone that isn't a project, that isn't a Ronnie Delia, someone that we know has been over the course. And that's going to be tough to find, but that's why they're paid a lot of money, the Celtic directors. They need to do that for us. So, yeah, if I had to handpick one, Eddie Howe.
Declan, I don't know if you caught Chris Sutton's on the BT Sport Scottish Football Extra last night. Some mad names been brought up.
Right.
I think Darryl Curry mentioned Sean Dyche, and they were talking about Mick McCarthy and Michael O'Neill as well. You just hope that the club don't go down that sort of route, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, you always get these links of Roy Keane's and Mick McCarthy's. I know Big Mick's had quite a good start to his time at Cardiff there, but no, I think we need to go in a new direction, Paul, as Kenny's touched on it. I think it needs to be doing that director of football. I don't think these guys would probably want to work with a director of football. I thought Brendan Rodgers' comments the other day were also really, really interesting, and talking about it was critical that the manager had somebody there that could get him the players he wanted, because the buck stops with the manager. We've seen that this season with Neil Lennon. The buck stops with the manager. And if you're not getting the players that you want, you're the guy, that gets the blame for it. And you're basically, even though you're probably passing the blame to somebody else, you're the guy that's losing your job for it. So that's where I think we need to go for a director of football. Dominic Mackay won't have the kind of links I don't think that Peter Lawwell will have in the game, and that's why it needs to be director of football for me, be a head coach. But no, I don't want us to go down that route with all those old names that crop up every time. It's just not the direction I want the club to be headed in.
I don't think you need to be a genius to read between the lines of what Brendan Rodgers was saying the other day. Kenny, back to today and the rest of this season. What are your expectations for these final 7 games? We know there's not a lot to play for, as you've said. the manager's going to change. A lot of players might leave. What are your expectations in these final 7 games?
I mean, it's pretty miserable. We probably all just want to wake up when this is over, right? Because it's pretty horrible going through these games. There is one thing left to play for. We've got to do everything in our muster to stop Rangers winning the league at Celtic Park. That is, like it or not, like it or lump it, that's a huge game for us. We've got to avoid having that sort of stain on our history. Now, personally, I think I would be playing Griffiths. You know, I get the only striker that we've got that can go alongside Eddie is Griffiths. The only striker we've got with any experience of playing in a derby game and doing well in derby games is Griffiths up front with Eddie. I would be moving to that. I think in the next game against Dundee United, we've got to say, let's be realistic here. Forget trying to blood people and get experimental systems in. What is the 11 that we can play against Rangers that gives us the best possibility of avoiding them winning the league at Celtic Park? That's the immediate goal. Once that's done, if we lose or win, we can move on and perhaps be a bit more experimental. Maybe give Ewan Henderson a game. Try and get a Yeti sometimes. Have an eye on next season. Give Sorrow the time he needs to bed in. There's not going to be that many players here next season, but for those that are, why not give them a bit more time after next season? But I think for the next couple of games, it's head down, best 11, do whatever we can to avoid losing that game.
Yeah, I totally agree. Declan, what do you think? Well, it's only really Dundee United before that game, isn't it? What are your expectations going forward for the rest of the season?
I totally agree with Kennedy. We can't let Rangers win the league at Celtic Park. We can't let them go unbeaten for a season. This has been a nightmare, I think, for all of us. We can all agree on that. But we want some kind of positive end to the end of the season. That would be just a wee tiny thing. I think John Kennedy yesterday spoke about letting a bit of the sunshine back in. Kennedy spoke earlier on about the players being in pretty low place. It's about probably getting the best out of them and letting them play their football and enjoy it a wee bit and show us that there's still players in there that can take us forward next season, because there is still enough there, I think, that's a good core of a team to move forward with. I know a lot of the loan players will go. We've got a lot of first team players who will probably depart this summer. I think there's still enough left to go forward. So I think it's just about seeing that at the end of the season and getting past these last 7 games with little damage as possible and not ruining anybody's weekend anymore.
I am all for that. Last one on today before we wrap up, boys. Man of the match. Do you agree with the sponsor, Kenny?
Who was the sponsor? I never even picked that up.
Ajer.
Probably, yeah. I would have given it to Eddie for the first hour. He started to piss me off about Eddie with his greediness. He thinks he's got to, unless he beats every defender, he doesn't seem to be that happy, but he was causing them all sorts of problems. Probably would agree with Ajer, yeah, but just for his leadership and his desire.
Declan?
Yep, I would go for Ajer again. I thought he organised a decent back line again and just his usual good defensive performance. So the big man for me as well, yep.
Full house for Ajer. I thought he was brilliant, defended well at times, and as I say, his leadership qualities really help him, particularly beside a young guy like Stephen Welsh beside him. That's it for today. Like the video, comment with your own thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you shortly for Twitter reactions. Cheers.